We now look at virtue theory. Virtue theory is one of the moral theories that is well established historically and is also popular out in the wild, or the real world, as some people would say. Basic definition of virtue theory is that it is focused primarily on the character of the agent. The idea is that a person should develop, cultivate their character by developing virtues that are both considered moral virtues and things like presumably honesty, generosity, etc., as well as non-moral virtues as well, presumably things like intelligence, strength, etc. So crudely put, being all you can be. And the objective for virtue theorists is to achieve excellence. And they tend to regard virtues as having intrinsic value. That is to say, they're not merely useful for something else or means to an end, that the virtues are in and of themselves valuable. Although, of course, there's obviously exceptions where philosophers consider virtues to be a means to an end. These theories are often based on assessments of human nature. For example, we'll see in Aristotle, he goes through in detail looking at what humans are like in order to see what human excellence is, and thus determine the proper virtues. And so, on virtue theory, virtues are taken to be dominant. They're often taken to have intrinsic value, although there are exceptions, of course. And in terms of getting various moral principles and moral duties, they're typically derived from the virtues. So in terms of asking, what should you do? The answer, not surprisingly, is to act in a virtuous way, and that provides the duties that one should fulfill. Notable proponents of virtue theory include our good dead friend Aristotle. Many consider Plato and his mentor Socrates to often be virtue theorists. There's also, of course, Confucius, Thomas Aquinas. Although we'll look at him in the context of religion and ethics, he essentially takes Aristotle's view, consider that like the base layer of the cake, and then adds on another layer of cake, which is a Christian virtue system. More recent philosophers include Alasdair MacIntyre, Philippa Foot, and Richard Taylor. In terms of why people like virtue theory, one reason is that it's often seen as being fairly practical. They give you a clear guide about how to become a good person, develop your virtues, and presenting specific virtues to develop, like bravery, generosity, etc. It also has an intuitive appeal. If you were to ask most people, are virtues good? Most people would tend to say yes. And in fact, they might say, if they have some philosophical experience, that you might be inclined to think they're kind of good by definition, because it's a virtue. Virtue theory has a universal appeal in the sense that if you look at pretty much all known human cultures across time, being virtuous is generally accepted as a positive thing. And many of the virtues, although they'll have particular manifestations, things like generosity, courage, honesty, etc., tend to be valued in almost all human societies. Although in terms of whether people actually follow that or not, another question. So that's a quick introduction to virtue theory. As our particular examples, we'll look at Confucius, and then we'll also look at our good dead friend Aristotle. So stay safe, and I'll see you in the future.